What is up, ladies and gentlemen? But most of all, you ladies out there, thanks for clicking on another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg. All-Star Starters. Split cap! We just got the official announcement of the 2023 NBA All-Star Starters, and there were some absolute surprises in this list. One name in particular that really shocked me to make the starting lineup. A lot of familiar faces, though, as well. And we're going to break this down because I want to talk about, one, the guys that made it, maybe a couple guys that should have made it. And I also want to talk about this overlying issue as to what the All-Star game should be about. Should it be about the guys that we want to watch as far as who's the most flashy, the guys who can shoot the farthest away and jump the highest, or should it be about the guys who are actually deserving? And awards in general, there's a lot of debate there. I think when you're talking about guys who make the All-Pro team, All-NBA team, guys who win MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, all these awards, they're voted on by people, and a lot of these can affect players' contracts or their legacy or the way that these players are viewed. So these are really, really important when you're looking at it to kind of determine between guys, and that's why this voting is actually important and should be taken seriously. So we're going to break all that down. Before we get into it, first, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. You see how close we are to 1,000 subscribers, and that's crazy. We're going to keep grinding and get there very soon, hopefully in the next week or two. So if you could take a second to hit that little button. Now, I want to start with just reading off the teams to you. So in the Eastern Conference, the captain, Giannis Antetokounmpo. In finishing out the front court, Jayson Tatum and Kevin Durant. In the back court, Kyrie Irving and Donovan Mitchell. In the Western Conference, the captain, LeBron James. Joining him in the front court, Nikola Jokic, Zion Williamson. And in the back court, we have Luka Doncic and Steph Curry. Now, one of the things that Shaq was talking about was he wants there to be a center on both teams, and that applies to Joel Embiid in the Eastern Conference. And then you hear a lot of people saying that it should be completely positionless. If you had just the 5 best players from each conference, Joel Embiid would have made it anyway. So that's a big debate. Should you have it more specific by position, or should you open it up more? In my opinion, I just want the 5 best guys out there. If that is Jayson Tatum, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, and Donovan Mitchell, then that should be who makes the All-Star game. In the Western Conference, I feel like you could have had one more guard and potentially gone away from Zion Williamson. But with how it's presently constructed, where you have 3 front court guys, 2 back court guys, I think that they got a couple things wrong. Now, let's start with the obvious. I'm going to start in the Western Conference here because I think that one was maybe a little more easy for me to put together my personal lineup. Obviously, Nikola Jokic, no-brainer. Guy's in the lead for his 3rd consecutive MVP. His team's number 1 in the Western Conference. He plays almost every game. He's averaging 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 9.9 assists. If he gets to that triple-double, that's just insane. So Nikola Jokic, no-brainer. Let's move on from him. Not a lot to say there. I broke down a lot of Nikola Jokic's game. I love watching him play. Absolute no-brainer when it comes to the All-Star game. Not much to talk about there. LeBron James being the captain. Now, first I want to start off with, I know a lot of you, and also special shout out, I got my Kobe jersey on because I know the All-Star MVP is named after Kobe Bryant, R.I.P. Kobe, but felt it was appropriate to wear that. LeBron James, All-Star captain, All-Star starter, actually broke the all-time record for All-Star game appearances past Kareem, and then starting all-time most starts in an All-Star game past Kobe Bryant. Really unbelievable what this guy is still doing. I think, again, no-brainer in the front court, averaging 29.9 points, 8.5 rebounds, 7 assists. And, he's missed some games, but not a ton, not enough to make him fall out of there. And I think he was another no-brainer. Third and final no-brainer, in my opinion, in the Western Conference was Luka Doncic. He's 2nd in the league in scoring. Actually, no, number 1 in the league in scoring, 33.8 points a game, averaging 8.6 assists, 9.1 rebounds. His team is the 6th seed. He's also played 44 games, so he's played a majority of the games. Most teams are around 47 to 49 games. So when I'm naming off how many games these guys have played, to me, this is something that's really important. It'll come into play here in a second for a couple guys when you're talking about Zion Williamson, Kyrie Irving, and then the East front court in general. The amount of games played, to me, kind of plays into this whole debate. Should it be the guys that are deserving, or should it be the highest star power? So the two in the Western Conference that I thought were a little iffy. Stephen Curry obviously is fantastic. And if you're trying to do the guy that's most exciting, that is absolutely Steph Curry. We know he's electric in all-star games. We know seeing him shoot from 35, 40 feet in all-star games is about as fun as anything you can expect. And for the season, he's averaging 29.3 points a game, 6.2 assists, 6.2 rebounds. So having a fantastic year individually. He's played about 69% of the games for the Golden State Warriors. That's 33 games out of their 48. And all you dirty minds just got a nice little giggle there. Stephen Curry, clearly, if he played all the games, would be in the starting lineup. Now, my question here is between three guys in the Western Conference: Steph Curry, Ja Morant, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, when you're talking about deserving, this season deserving, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has played 44 games. He is averaging 30.8 points per game, which is fifth in the league in scoring. He is also averaging 4.8 rebounds and 5.6 assists. Statistically, really killing it. Ja Morant has played 40 games. He is averaging 27.3 points per game. He is averaging, 8 assists a game and 5.5 rebounds. So those three guys you could kind of have a discussion about. If you're going for the guys that are most exciting, now Ja, you could argue, is maybe the most exciting guy in the league. Steph has the biggest following. Obviously, his voting is going to be really high. But if you're talking about the most deserving, to me, Steph has just missed too many games. And I would have leaned Ja Morant in this particular debate. Ja Morant's team is second in the Western Conference. Steph Curry's team's a little lower. Steph has missed, like I said, 31% of the season. That's a significant chunk when you're talking about winning some of these awards. And that was the big debate when you were talking MVP or All-NBA last year. When you had Kevin Durant and Jayson Tatum vying for that first-team All-NBA, one of the big debates was that Jayson Tatum had played so many more games than Kevin Durant. And the precedent we've set is that there's a certain amount of games that you need to play to make the All-NBA team. That is not the case with the All-Star game. The precedent is the most excited guys get a majority of the fan votes. Steph Curry's going to get a crazy amount of the fan votes. Ultimately, I don't have a big problem with this one. But to me, I would have leaned a little bit towards Ja Morant. And if you would have said Shai, I wouldn't have been that upset about it. Now, my big problem, and honestly probably my biggest dispute on the list, is Zion Williamson. Now, let me start off by saying Zion Williamson is one of the most fun players in the NBA to watch. He's an absolute unicorn. Unbelievable the way that he can physically dominate the NBA game. And there was a lot of debate coming in from just random guys you'd hear on the street talking about Zion's not going to be able to do what to NBA players, full-grown men, what he's able to do to college guys. He absolutely has been able to and is playing at a really high level. Zion Williamson is averaging 26 points a game, 7 rebounds, and 4.6 assists. Again, another guy that if he had played a majority of the games, to me, would have been a no-brainer. But he's played 59% of their games, so even less than Steph. He's played 29 games. They've played 49 as a team. So a guy that's missed 20 games, almost half the season. What is it? So are we just picking the guys that we want to watch most in this All-Star game, or should it be the guys that are actually deserving? And to me, there's a gray area there, but if you've missed over 40% of the season, I would kind of lean the guy that is also balling out in the Western Conference, and his team is number 3 in the West, and he's played a majority of their games. And I personally would have went Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis for this season, let me get it pulled up real quick, is averaging 18.4 points, which isn't a ton. He's played 45 of their 48 games, so he's played almost all of them. But he's averaging 18.4 points, 12.4 rebounds, and 7.3 assists. His team is also number 3 in the Western Conference, and that's something you never thought you'd say about the Sacramento Kings, is that Domantas Sabonis and the Kings are the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. So to me, there's real value in what you're doing for your team, and I think we see that value when you're talking about other voting spots. That's why Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't the clear starter for the Western Conference. Winning games kind of matters. And obviously, you could push back and say LeBron's team is not winning a ton of games. I just think statistically he's so far ahead and he's played enough games to where, to me, that doesn't really apply in that situation. And when you're going and comparing guys, you're kind of, looking for small margins of differences. And when statistics can be somewhat similar, and obviously Zion averages more points, but Sabonis averages far more rebounds and assists. His team's doing better. He's played way more games. I would have leaned to Domantas Sabonis. But again, Zion is the guy you want to watch when it comes to exciting. So Western Conference, I think there were two spots to debate, and it was the Steph Zion spots. But ultimately, what happened was we got the 5 most exciting guys in the Western Conference to watch. And you can't tell me you don't want to watch Nikola Jokic throw up a lob to Zion Williamson or LeBron drive and kick out to Steph for a 35-foot three-pointer. Absolutely will be exciting. And, ultimately looking forward to that side. Now, the Eastern Conference, again, there were kind of 2 spots of debate here. Donovan Mitchell, I think, was clearly the starter at the guard position and then there were 3 other guys that I kind of debated between in my mind: Kyrie Irving, Trae Young, Jaylen Brown, and potentially Tyrese Halliburton. So technically 4 guys there for that second guard spot. Kyrie Irving, you got to remember, to start the season, missed quite a few games. He played 36 games. And what I keep coming back to is games played. And if you disagree, I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts. Kyrie Irving, but to me, if we're talking about all-star starters for this year, we're not talking about an all-time legacy debate, who's better, Kyrie or Tyrese Halliburton. But if you're talking about games for this year, he missed a lot of games. And if you remember, to start the season, he was suspended by his own team. That was this year. Kyrie Irving, though, is obviously very, very exciting, probably the most exciting guard in the Eastern Conference. Kyrie Irving is averaging for the season 26.8 points a game. I believe 4.3 assists, 3.9 rebounds. Jaylen Brown has played 7 more games, is averaging more points, is averaging, he's averaging 7.1 rebounds, so 2 more rebounds a game, and then 2 less assists. And Jaylen Brown's team is doing better. If you're talking about deserving, it's probably Jaylen Brown. Again, on the other hand, Trae Young, though, is averaging 27.1 points a game, 9.9 assists, and 2.9 rebounds. As many of you know, I'm not the biggest Trae Young fan in the world. I think with all the drama that's happening in Atlanta, his team struggling so much, I don't have a problem with Trae Young not being a starter. Ultimately, again, you chose the most exciting guy in Kyrie Irving. We see the way that he's played in some of the All-Star games in the past. We see the way that he has the ball on an absolute string. He can shoot from anywhere. Kyrie Irving is definitely exciting, but that would have been the slight change that I would have had there. Finishing up in the front court of the Eastern Conference, there were 4 guys for 3 spots, and this was kind of the biggest debate as far as who should make it. You had Jayson Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant are the guys that actually made it, and the odd one out was Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is second in the league in scoring, averaging 33.4 points a game. He's 9.8 rebounds a game, 4.1 assists, 1.7 blocks a game. Joel Embiid's team is currently second in the Eastern Conference. So Joel had a heck of a case. And even though Kevin Durant's been out games, Giannis has been out games, Giannis has played 37 games to Embiid's 35. Kevin Durant still has played 39 games to Embiid's 35. I think Jayson Tatum has played 46. He almost never takes nights off. He's third in the league in scoring. 8.6 rebounds a game, 4.4 assists, plays defense at a high level. Jayson Tatum, to me, was probably a definite. Giannis Antetokounmpo being the starter and the captain, I don't have a problem with that either. And then I think the real debate was between Kevin Durant and Embiid. Embiid's stats are insane, but it feels to me like they took into account games played in that specific position, but they didn't in a lot of other cases. And I know that fan vote is technically the 50% of the driving factor here, but there's still 50% that goes to the media and players. So I'd be interested to see how close that was. Ultimately, games played came into effect in some situations, but not others. And that's why, to be honest with you, sometimes this just confuses me. And when we're talking about legacy debates, it's hard sometimes to go by things that are voted on, things that are not tangible when you're talking about MVPs, defensive players of the years, all-star appearances, all NBAs. When you're comparing between all-time greats, you kind of have to look at those things, but also when you really break them down, sometimes it's hard to know if every year LeBron being in the All-Star game, I think he's deserved it every year, but do we know that? I mean, Yao Ming got a ton of votes one year, and then Zaza Pachulia got a ton of votes one year. It's like I don't always know that these are based on warrant as much as they are popularity, and that to me is a little frustrating. But ultimately, not too upset with the lineups. I think Zion was the one guy that just didn't play enough games, in my opinion. But I'm excited to watch this game. I think the draft will be really exciting, and ultimately all those guys that I mentioned will make the All-Star game. Sabonis will make the All-Star game. Shai and Ja will both make it. Jaylen Brown will make it. All these guys will make the All-Star game. But we're talking about the starters and the excitement of getting to be a starter in the NBA All-Star game. I think it should be a little more based on what you did that year, and I'd like to see that change going forward. I also wouldn't mind to see completely positionless. I think that would make it to where in the West you would have had Luka, Steph, Ja, probably, LeBron, Jokic. And then in the East, you probably would have had Spida, Tatum, Giannis, Durant, and Embiid. And I think you would have got probably the 5 most deserving guys on both sides. But ultimately, we're excited to watch more NBA basketball. Appreciate y'all watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe. Saburgal.